Hi, my name is Amelia, and we are at the Australian Institute of International Affairs with Jurg Montani, the head of the International Committee on the Red Cross delegation in Myanmar. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Jurg has been in Myanmar since 2013, and he is here in Australia to discuss the humanitarian situation in Myanmar and the challenges of working in a context of protracted conflict, movement restrictions, and mass displacements, and all against the backdrop of political transition. The ICRC has been providing humanitarian assistance in Myanmar for more than 30 years, and it's active today in the Shan, Kachin, and Rakhine states. All of these states suffer ongoing ethnic conflict, but the plight of the Rohingya and the Rakhine states are particularly critical. Could you briefly describe the situation in those states?
Yes, indeed. I think Rakhine has received a lot of international attention of late, particularly also because of the discussions in the Human Rights Council. But what we have to realize is that Myanmar really suffers from long-standing protracted conflicts. It's amongst the longest-standing internal conflicts in the world. And this concerns particularly this concerns particularly Kachin and Shan states, where we have an extremely complex setup of nearly 20 separate non-state armed groups, which are at different levels of struggle against the Tatmadaw, the Myanmar army, or even to a certain extent amongst themselves. So what we see in terms of humanitarian consequences in the northeast is not only the immediate consequences of conflict and of the fighting, but is really a cumulative effect of decades of conflict which have affected livelihoods. You have people who have been displaced for several years and displaced several times. These conflicts have also slowed down development or the opportunities for development in those states. So we're really addressing the cumulative effects of decades of conflict in the northeast. In Rakhine, although the issue is equally long-standing, the big violence erupted in 2012, which led to displacement of up to 120,000 people at the time. And the segregation of the main two communities, the Rakhine Buddhist communities and the Muslim communities in Rakhine State. This segregation has effectively disrupted the social and economic links that existed between those communities and therefore affected the livelihoods of both communities. So we're looking there as well at a situation that is long-standing and that has consequences that really disrupt the tissue of the social economic situation there. In October last year, there was then a new group that came into play and attacked security forces in the northern part of Rakhine, which has elevated the level of violence there over the past few months, which has led to another approximately 70,000 people fleeing to Bangladesh and about 20,000 people internally displaced in northern Rakhine. And we've heard since very strong allegations of violations against the civilian population during the clearing operations. So an incredibly difficult situation, both in Rakhine, but also in the conflict in the northeast.
Okay. So how has the transition to democracy and efforts to liberalize the economy affected the ongoing violence?
The reform movement properly started under the Thein Sein administration, so the prior administration, where the government opened up more to the world, and then there was a transition to the NLD government led by Aung San Suu Kyi last year. The reform process is ongoing. The economic reforms are ongoing, but they're touching mainly the the main parts of the economy, if you so want. And if you're looking at the situation in the border areas where we look at the conflict situations, one of the big issues there is the informal economy or the illegal economy. So illegal trade of any type of resources, jade, timber, etc. But also a local economy based on illegal drugs production and sales of illegal drugs, which themselves have a very deep impact on the population in those areas. It's again a very disruptive illegal economy, which is incredibly difficult for the government as well to tackle, particularly because it is also in areas that are not under full control of the authorities.
Okay. So last month, the UN Special Rapporteur to Myanmar called for an independent investigation on killings in Rakhine. In the same report, she expressed concern about the increasing violence in the Shan and Kachin states. Is there enough international attention being paid to these critical humanitarian situations? And what, if anything, could be done?
I think what the international community needs to look into is really to find ways to support the government of Myanmar in its efforts to find long-lasting solutions. Now, this needs to be a mix of constructive cooperation with the authorities. In the end, it is the government's responsibility to find the solutions, without letting go of the attention and underlining the urgency of finding some long-lasting solutions. So I think this is the role that the international community can play. What we also shouldn't forget is that alongside initiatives like the peace process, like longer-term development projects, there is a population there that is affected by the current conflict, by that they have immediate needs, they lack access to basic services. And we need to address the needs of those people while the longer-term solutions are found. And this is where organizations like the ICRC come in and try to address the immediate needs, but also start to design their programs in a way that we can facilitate the longer-term development. I think this is something that might sometimes be forgotten, is yes, we need to address the longer-term solutions, we need to address the root causes, but in the meantime, we also need to address the immediate needs, and this is where impartial humanitarian aid, like what the ICRC does, is necessary.
Okay. Thank you for taking time to speak with me, Jurg.
Very welcome.
If you would like more information on Myanmar or international affairs in general, please go to internationalaffairs.org.au and follow us on Twitter and Facebook.